If you enjoy deep Resident Evil lore, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. And let me know in the comments which Resident Evil game is your favorite. I'm curious to see where everyone stands. Before we get into the video, I just want to say thank you for the support on this new channel. To give something back, I'm doing a small giveaway. On release day, February 27th, 2026, I'll be giving away a Resident Evil 9 game code or store voucher. To enter, just comment Resident Evil 9 below. I'll put all the names into a wheel spin and announce the winner on the 27th. And yes, your name can be entered more than once across different videos. Just keep it to one comment per video. This video breaks down Leon's role in Requiem. Part 1. Why Leon had to come back. The return of Leon Scott Kennedy in Resident Evil Requiem is not merely a tactical decision by Capcom to leverage fan nostalgia. It is a narrative and thematic necessity for the 30th anniversary of the franchise. The year 2028 marks exactly 30 years since the original Raccoon City incident in September 1998, and returning to that site without the man who first survived it would lack the emotional weight of unfinished business. Leon represents the moral center of a world that began to end in Raccoon City. His presence validates the stakes for a new generation. He is the original witness to the biological disaster that redefined global security, and his return serves as a thematic bookend to 3 decades of horror. For the story of Resident Evil Requiem to function as a true requiem for the dead, it must be told through the lens of the man who has spent the majority of his adult life cleaning up the biological mess left by the Umbrella Corporation. Leon is the tactical anchor for the Resident Evil Requiem experience. While Grace Ashcroft provides the fresh perspective and the visceral horror of a civilian, Leon provides the clinical history of the conflict. He has survived every major biological catastrophe, from the G virus outbreak to the global saturation of the C virus. His return to the Arklay region is a signal that the threads left dangling in the 1990s are finally being pulled. The lost records of the RPD and the secret government sterilization strategy are elements that Leon has been fighting to declassify for his entire professional life. By placing him back in the ruins of the city that destroyed his youth, Capcom is bringing the series full circle. This allows the player to witness the final judgment of the era that started it all, seen through the eyes of a man who has traded his innocence for the skills of a high-tier operative. The clinical reality of why Leon had to come back is the passing of the torch dynamic. To establish Grace Ashcroft as a credible lead for the future of the series, she must be tested alongside the best the series has to offer. Leon functions as the standard of excellence against which her growth is measured. His presence highlights the gap between a legend who sees monsters as tactical targets and a human who sees them as nightmares. This contrast is what makes the 30th anniversary so impactful. It honors the 30-year journey of the character, while proving that the world has become so broken and decentralized that even a hero of Leon's caliber cannot fix it alone. He is the witness to the end of the beginning, the one who stands in the fire one last time so that the truth can finally be told. His return is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of 30 years of biological failure. Furthermore, Leon's involvement provides the necessary bridge for the veterans who have been following the series since the original PlayStation era. He is the character who understands the clinical soul of the Spencer legacy. His return to the Raccoon City outskirts is not a trip down memory lane. It is a surgical operation to remove the last vestiges of the original conspiracy. Without Leon, the 30th anniversary would feel like a celebration of a brand. With him, it feels like a celebration of a struggle. He is the moral center of a world that is permanently scarred by the events of 1998, and his return is the final act of a play that has been 30 years in the making. He is the only character who can truly say that he was there when the nightmare started, and he will be there when the final truth is declassified. Part 2, Leon in 2028, What He's Become. By the year 2028, Leon Scott Kennedy is no longer the cool action hero of his prime years. He is a DSO veteran suffering from extreme burnout and the physical toll of nearly 3 decades of biological warfare. The idealistic rookie who arrived in Raccoon City on September 29, 1998, has been replaced by a man who treats survival as a routine rather than a struggle. His movements are efficient and calculated. His dialogue is sparse, and his eyes reflect the weariness of a man who has seen more death than most entire nations. He has become emotionally detached to keep himself from breaking under the weight of the billions of lives lost to viral outbreaks. He is a clinical study in moral exhaustion, a soldier who no longer fights for the thrill of the victory, but because he is the only one left who knows how to finish the job. The physical reality of Leon in 2028 is a testament to the biological toll of the Resident Evil world. He is older, his features are grizzled, and his body is a map of scars from encounters with tyrants, Ganados, and Javo. He no longer cracks the dry jokes that defined his mission in Spain. Instead, he operates with a grim silence that is far more terrifying. He has realized that the hero he tried to be died in the RPD station 30 years ago, and the man who survived is just a tired soldier doing his job. His detachment is a survival mechanism. He treats the biological organic weapons he encounters as data points to be neutralized, showing a clinical indifference to the gore that would paralyze a civilian like Grace. He is the ultimate professional, a man who has refined his lethality to the point where it has become his only language. This burnout is not just physical, it is a deep psychological fatigue. Leon has realized that no matter how many outbreaks he cleans up, the world remains broken. The corporate and government interests that created Umbrella have simply mutated into new forms, like the shadow factions within the DSO and the BSAA. His loyalty to the institutions he serves is at its breaking point. He operates with a cynical determination, no longer believing that the world can be saved, but only that the monsters must be stopped before they consume what little remains of human agency. He is a man who is waiting for the end, but refuses to let the apocalypse win on his watch. This version of Leon is a requiem for the action era, a reminder that even the strongest survivors are eventually eroded by the constant presence of horror. Leon in 2028 also represents the alienation of the legend. He is a man who has outlived most of his peers and has spent his life in a world that the public only partially understands. He is a relic of the Umbrella era, a man who remembers the analog terror of the 1990s in a world of digital biological warfare. His relationship with other characters is defined by a cold distance, as he knows that getting close to anyone in his line of work is a death sentence for them. He is the lonely protector, the man who stands on the edge of the abyss so that others don't have to look into it. This version of Leon is the most human he has ever been, precisely because he has had to trade so much of his humanity for the skills of a survivor. He is the record of 30 years of biological failure, a man who is finally ready to lay his burdens down, but only after the final truth is told. Part 3. Why Leon is Hunting Victor Gideon. Leon Scott Kennedy's pursuit of Dr. Victor Gideon in Resident Evil Requiem is not a standard government assignment. It is a deeply personal quest for the truth that was stolen from him when he was 21 years old. After the destruction of Raccoon City in 1998, the United States government redacted and destroyed the vast majority of the RPD records to protect high-level officials who were complicit in Umbrella's research. Leon has spent the last 30 years believing that the names of the men who blackmailed him into the DSO were lost forever. However, he has discovered that Victor Gideon, a former Umbrella scientist with ties to the original Raccoon City laboratories, is in possession of the lost records of the RPD. These records contain the clinical proof of the government's involvement in the sterilization strategy and the names of the architects of the Raccoon City cover-up. For Leon, Victor Gideon represents the final key to unlocking the secrets of his own life. The DSO has used Leon as a biological silver bullet for decades, keeping him on a leash through the threat of redacted evidence and the safety of his remaining friends like Sherry Birkin. By hunting Gideon, Leon is attempting to liquidate the leverage that the shadow factions of the government hold over him. This is a mission of personal declassification. He is not just looking for a virus. He is looking for the names of the men who turned his life into a series of biohazard cleanups. This turns Leon from a government agent into a rogue investigator, putting him on a collision course with the very institutions he was sworn to protect. He is a man who is finally tired of the secrets, and he is willing to burn the entire world to find the truth buried in Gideon's archives. The clinical reality of this hunt is the sorrow of the truth. Leon knows that finding the names of the men who blackmailed him will not undo the 30 years of trauma he has suffered. It will not bring back the people of Raccoon City, and it will not save his youth. But it will provide him with the intellectual agency that he has been denied for his entire professional life. Gideon is a shadow from the past, a man who knows the original sin of the Arklay region. By pursuing him into the ruins, Leon is confronting the architect of his own misery. This hunt is the final audit of Leon's career, a surgical attempt to remove the cancerous secrets that have defined the Resident Evil world since 1998. He is not hunting a monster. He is hunting the record of a monster, and he will not stop until the evidence is laid bare. Furthermore, Gideon is linked to the Elpis ideology, a new category of biological terror that seeks to sterilize the human species to create a more controlled biological order. Leon recognizes the DNA of the cover-up in Gideon's work. He sees the same cold, institutional logic that was used to justify the destruction of Raccoon City 30 years ago. This makes the hunt even more urgent. Leon isn't just fighting for his own freedom. He is fighting to prevent the original sin from being scaled up to a global level. He is the forensic link between the past's lies and the present's conspiracy. By hunting Victor Gideon, Leon is attempting to perform a biological requiem for the entire world, ensuring that the truth is finally set free from the labs of the Arklay region. Part 4, Leon vs. Grace. 2 ways to survive horror. The pairing of Leon Scott Kennedy and Grace Ashcroft in Resident Evil Requiem is a deliberate clinical study in the contrast between experience and vulnerability. They represent 2 completely different philosophies of survival within the biohazard world. Leon represents the experienced survivor, a man who has been conditioned by 30 years of combat to move with tactical precision and clinical efficiency. He doesn't flinch at the sight of gore, and he treats the biological organic weapons as targets to be neutralized. Grace, however, represents the primal survivor, a civilian who is genuinely terrified and physically weak. This dynamic forces the player to feel the massive gap between a legend and a human, highlighting exactly how much of his humanity Leon had to trade for his survival. In gameplay terms, this contrast is utilized to create a sauna and cold bath effect. Grace's segments are focused on survival horror dread, where the player is cowering in the shadows and managing limited resources. Switching to Leon provides a sense of tree lease, as his high-tier combat skills allow the player to finally fight back against the nightmares. However, this empowerment is balanced by the realization that Leon's experience has made him emotionally numb. While Grace reacts to the horror with genuine panic and empathy, Leon reacts with a cold, professional detachment. This highlights the cost of survival in the Resident Evil universe. To become as capable as Leon, you must lose the ability to be scared, which is a fundamental part of being human. Grace is the soul of the game, while Leon is the weapon, and their cooperation is the only way to survive the ruins of Raccoon City. The clinical reality of this dynamic is the mentorship of the aftermath. Leon does not treat Grace as a damsel in distress to be saved. He treats her as a professional colleague who possesses the technical skills he lacks. He provides the shield of tactical cover fire so that Grace can provide the brain of forensic investigation. He recognizes her intelligence and her resolve, and he allows her to grow into her own role without being overshadowed by his legend. This is a quiet mentorship, where Leon teaches her the hard truths of survival through his actions rather than his words. He shows her that the only way to survive a world of monsters is to be smarter than the people who created them. This dynamic is the heart of the 30th anniversary, showing that the future of the series belongs to the analysts like Grace, even if they still need the protection of the veterans like Leon. Furthermore, the Leon versus Grace contrast allows the game to explore the evolution of fear. For a veteran like Leon, the horror is no longer found in the jump scares or the sudden attacks. It is found in the systemic failure of the world. He is scared of the truth, not the monsters. For Grace, the horror is visceral and physical. She is scared of being torn apart by the thing in the hallway. By switching between these two perspectives, Capcom is providing a total audit of the survival horror experience. It proves that there are two ways to survive a nightmare, which are to be too strong to be killed or too smart to be caught. The interaction between these two philosophies is what makes Resident Evil Requiem the most complex and rewarding entry in the series' history. It is a requiem for the single protagonist model, proving that the truth is only found in the friction between experience and innocence. Part 5. Why Leon is no longer the horror POV. One of the most significant narrative shifts in Resident Evil Requiem is the clinical realization that Leon Scott Kennedy is no longer suitable to be the primary horror perspective for the series. This is not a critique of his character, but a recognition of his high-tier experience. By the year 2028, Leon has fought everything from the original zombies of the RPD to the massive godlike mutations of Albert Wesker and the Simmons family. He has survived 30 years of the most intense biological warfare in human history. To a man of his background, a lunge from a monster or a jump scare in a dark hallway is no longer a source of terror. It is a tactical event to be managed with a parry and a counterattack. Leon is too experienced to be scared by the standard tools of survival horror, which is why Capcom has moved him into the power fantasy and action thriller role. The clinical reality of this shift is that horror requires a protagonist who is unprepared and vulnerable. Grace Ashcroft provides this perspective because she is a civilian analyst who has never seen a biological weapon in the flesh. Before her arrival, at the Wrenwood Hotel. When she encounters a monster, her panic is genuine, and her physical weakness makes every shadow a threat. If the player were playing only as Leon, the tension of the game would evaporate because Leon has the tools and the confidence to handle almost any physical situation. By using Leon as the tension release, Capcom allows the player to experience the exhilaration of fighting back with a legend, while using Grace to provide the spine-tingling dread that defines the genre. Leon is the silver bullet against the monsters, but Grace is the victim who makes the monsters scary. Furthermore, Leon's role in 2028 is to show the player how the world looks to a professional. He sees the clinical underpinnings of the biological threat. When he enters a room covered in gore, he doesn't scream. He looks for the signature of the pathogen and the tactical patterns of the infected. This provides a forensic category of horror that is different from the visceral terror of Grace's segments. Leon is horrified by the scale and the efficiency of the Elpis ideology, realizing that the world is moving toward a state of permanent, controlled infection. This intellectual horror is what defines his character in Resident Evil Requiem. He is no longer the scream queen of the 1990s. He is the clinical auditor of the apocalypse. He is the witness who knows that the real nightmare is not the monster in the dark, but the board meeting that authorized its creation. Ultimately, the move away from Leon as the primary horror POV is a requiem for his youth. It honors the 30 years of struggle he has endured by showing that he has become a master of his environment. He has outgrown the traditional horror game mechanics because he has literally survived the genre itself. By pairing him with Grace, Capcom has created a dynamic harmony that allows the 30th anniversary to be both a pulse-pounding action game and a terrifying survival horror experience. Leon is the past confronting the present, the man who carries the weight of 30 years of battle, so that the new generation can find the truth. He is no longer the victim of the horror. He is the judge of it, and his segments provide the player with a strong sense of release and satisfaction that past titles didn't offer. Part 6. Action as Leon's Language. In the year 2028, Leon Scott Kennedy does not communicate through long-winded dialogue or emotional outbursts. He communicates through action. For a man who has spent 30 years in the high-tier biological combat zones of the world, combat has become his primary language. His gameplay sections in Resident Evil Requiem lean toward high-intensity action, reflecting his tactical mastery and his efficient, professional approach to neutralization. He doesn't solve environmental puzzles out of a sense of fear or curiosity. He clears rooms to reach a strategic objective. He is the silver bullet for the player, providing a strong sense of release after the grueling, quiet stealth segments with Grace Ashcroft. When the player switches to Leon, the game transforms into a pulse-pounding action thriller, where the objective is to use Leon's vast arsenal to tear through the nightmare. The clinical reality of action as language is the efficiency of Leon's movements. He utilizes the environment and brutal parries to maintain control of the battlefield. He fights dirty, using whatever tools are at his disposal to ensure his survival. This includes a customized VP-70 handgun, a military-grade combat hatchet, and even a modified chainsaw, a weapon that serves as a visceral homage to his survival in Spain 30 years prior. Leon's combat is not about the clean, military discipline of a character like Chris Redfield. It is about the desperate efficiency of someone who learned to kill in the zombie-infested streets of Raccoon City. He treats the biological organic weapons as obstacles to be cleared. showing a mechanical indifference to the gore that highlights his emotional detachment. He is the ultimate weapon for the 30th anniversary, providing the player with an exhilarating sense of release. Furthermore, Leon's action segments serve a specific psychological function for the player. After spending an hour cowering in the shadows, as Grace, switching to Leon allows the player to finally fight back against the things that have been hunting them. This release of tension is a consciously designed horror structure. It creates a unique rhythm for Resident Evil Requiem, like jumping into a cold bath after sitting in a hot sauna. Leon's ability to use melee attacks, parries, and even enemy weapons gives the player a tangible sense of empowerment. He is the icon of the series for a reason, and his action segments celebrate the 30 years of ass-kicking that he has provided for the franchise. He is the man who can walk into a room full of monsters and walk out the other side without breaking his stride. Ultimately, action as language is the only way Leon can truly express the moral exhaustion he feels. He has realized that the world cannot be fixed through words or diplomacy. It can only be fixed by stopping the monsters before they can inflict more suffering. His segments are a surgical cleanup of the biological mess, a clinical demonstration of what happens when 30 years of experience are focused on a single objective. He is the requiem for the peaceful world that died in 1998. A soldier who has accepted that his only value to the world is his lethality. By making his gameplay action-focused, Capcom has honored the legacy of Resident Evil 4 while providing a narrative justification for his skills. Leon is the legend who stands in the fire so that Grace can find the truth, and his language of action is the only thing that can keep the darkness at bay. Part 7. The Arsenal. Tools of a survivor, not a soldier. The weaponry utilized by Leon Scott Kennedy in the year 2028 represents a clinical shift in his philosophy of combat. In his younger years, particularly during his time with the Secret Service and the early DSO, Leon utilized the latest in high-tech military hardware. However, 30 years of biological warfare have taught him that technology can fail, but a rugged, utilitarian edge does not. His arsenal in Resident Evil Requiem is a reflection of a man who has transitioned from a government soldier to a hardened survivor. While he still carries his signature customized VP-70 handgun, a weapon that has been his primary companion since the RPD incident in 1998, the rest of his kit is defined by improvised and brutal efficiency. He utilizes tools that are designed for the dirty reality of fighting biological organic weapons in claustrophobic environments, such as a weighted hunting hatchet and a modified short-barreled chainsaw for heavy crowd control. Leon's combat style has evolved into a form of desperate efficiency. He does not fight with the clean, rhythmic military discipline exhibited by Chris Redfield or the members of the BSAA. Instead, he fights like someone who learned to kill while trapped in a zombie-infested police station. He uses the environment as a weapon, performing brutal parries with his hatchet and utilizing environmental executions that involve slamming enemies into structural debris or using their own biological appendages against them. This dirty fighting style is a narrative reflection of his burnout. He no longer cares about the grace of the kill, only the speed and certainty of it. His arsenal is the physical manifestation of 30 years of trauma, a collection of tools designed to ensure that he is the one who walks out of the room, regardless of the biological horror inside. The VP-70 remains his anchor, but the hatchet is his reality. The clinical reality of this arsenal is the friction it introduces to the gameplay. Unlike the high-capacity, low-recoil weapons found in the action-heavy entries of the series, Leon's 2028 kit requires more maintenance and tactical foresight. His VP-70 has a significant kick, and his melee tools like the hatchets have a durability gauge that forces the player to manage their use carefully. This restores the resource anxiety of the original games. You aren't just a walking tank. You're a man with a limited set of tools that can break under pressure. This forces the player to engage with the world in a more forensic way, looking for scrap materials to repair the hatchet, or finding specialized lubricants to keep the chainsaw from jamming during a critical encounter. It turns the business of killing into a clinical exercise in management. In addition to his primary tools, Leon utilizes found assets within the Wrenwood Hotel and the RPD ruins. Because he is an expert in improvisation, he can turn chemical canisters, electrical wiring, and even broken furniture into temporary traps or defensive barriers. This emphasizes his role as a survivor who has outgrown the need for a standard military supply chain. He is the Requiem for the clean soldier, a character who proves that in a world defined by biological failure, the only way to survive is to become as brutal and resourceful as the environment demands. His arsenal is the soul of his gameplay segments in Resident Evil Requiem, providing a rugged and high-stakes contrast to the technical and digital tools used by Grace Ashcroft. The VP-70 is no longer a symbol of law enforcement. It is a tool of a man who has survived 3 decades of hell. Part 8, The Attaché Case, Control versus Chaos. The return of the Attaché Case inventory system in Resident Evil Requiem is far more than a nostalgic nod to the 4th mainline entry. It is a profound clinical symbol of Leon Scott Kennedy's psychological state in 2028. In a world defined by biological chaos, rotting cities, and unpredictable viral mutations, the Attaché Case represents Leon's desperate need for order and control. For a man who has spent 30 years seeing his world dismantled by pathogens, the act of meticulously organizing his inventory is a form of psychological grounding. Every bullet, every herb, and every forensic tool has a specific place within the grid. This organization reflects a mind that has survived 3 decades of horror, by knowing exactly where every resource is located at all times. It is the Zen of survival, a gameplay mechanic that mirrors the rigid, disciplined psychological shell Leon has built to protect himself from breaking. The clinical reality of the Attaché Case is the management of space as a survival tactic. Unlike the simplified slot systems of later entries, the grid system forces the player to engage in inventory Tetris, where every item's physical dimensions must be considered. This adds a layer of pacing and friction to the experience. When you find a powerful new weapon or a high-tier forensic sample, you aren't just picking it up. You are performing a spatial audit to see if it can fit into your current loadout. This mirrors Leon's professional approach to a mission. He does not take more than he can carry, and he does not carry anything he does not know how to use. The act of organizing the case during a quiet moment in a safe room provides the player with the same sense of control that Leon feels. It is the only part of the world that makes sense to him, a small rectangle of logic in a city of madness. Leon's obsession with organization is a reaction to the biological entropy he has witnessed. In his view, the only way to prevent the chaos from consuming him is to maintain total control over his immediate environment. This extends to how he manages his ammunition for the VP-70 and the durability of his hatchet. The Attaché Case limits the player's options, forcing them to make clinical choices about what is truly essential. Do you carry more ammunition, or do you leave room for the heavy-duty hatchet? Do you pack extra healing items for Grace, or do you prioritize technical components for her forensic laptop? These decisions define the survival experience. The attaché case is the Requiem for the unlimited inventory, a reminder that in the world of the aftermath, you can only survive with what you can organize and protect. The case also serves as a narrative bridge between the player and Leon's internal world. It shows a man who has replaced emotional complexity with mechanical efficiency. He doesn't have a diary or a collection of personal mementos. He has a grid of tactical assets. The only personal item in his case is often a small, worn-out photo of Sherry Birkin or a faded DSO badge tucked away in a corner of the grid where it doesn't interfere with his ammunition. This clinical minimalism is the hallmark of a man who has traded his humanity for his survival. By interacting with the attaché case, the player is essentially interacting with the architecture of Leon's mind. It is a masterpiece of mechanical characterization, proving that in the Resident Evil universe, the way you pack your bag tells the story of who you have become after 30 years of hell. Part 9, Raccoon City, the place that never let him go. Leon Scott Kennedy is eternally tethered to the Arklay region. Every mission he has accepted and every biological horror he has neutralized since September 29th, 1998, has been a clinical attempt to compensate for the people he could not save on his first day as a police officer. Returning to the outskirts of Raccoon City in Resident Evil Requiem is not a trip of nostalgia. It is a haunting. For Leon, the city is a biological graveyard that holds the remains of his innocence. He sees the ghosts of his former self in every ruined street and every decaying RPD cruiser he encounters in the fog. The setting in 2028 is a literal manifestation of his trauma, a place where the original sin of the Umbrella Corporation is still rotting in the soil and the air. He is the man who never truly left the exclusion zone, and his return is the final act of a self-imposed penance that has lasted 3 decades. The clinical reality of returning to the Arklay region is the autopsy of a city. In 2028, Raccoon City is a decimated urban shell, reclaimed by nature. The trees have grown through the cracked asphalt, and a permanent, heavy fog hangs over the ruins, a result of the unique atmospheric conditions created by the 1998 thermal strike and the subsequent biological ELPIS leaks. Leon moves through this environment with a heavy familiarity. He knows the layout of the streets, but the landmarks are now twisted and alien. This creates a state of environmental dissonance. He is home, but home is a nightmare. This setting allows Capcom to explore the geological layering of the biohazard world. Beneath the forest and the ruins lie the secrets of the G-virus, the laboratories of Victor Gideon, and the truth about the sterilization strategy that Leon has been hunting for 30 years. Leon's return to the RPD ruins is a surgical operation to retrieve the lost records that were redacted 30 years ago. He is not there to reminisce. He is there to perform an institutional audit of the building that defined his life. He moves through the overgrown lobby and the collapsed office spaces with his VP-70 drawn, looking for the physical proof of the government's betrayal. The city is the judge of his career, a reminder that his heroism was only a temporary delay for an inevitable biological collapse. He realizes that despite the destruction of the city in 1998, the corporate and government cancer that started it all was never truly excised. The new Raccoon City is not a place of rebirth, but a place of refined infection. The setting provides the narrative justification for the Requiem theme. It is the site where the old world died and the new world of biological terror was born. By bringing Leon back to Ground Zero, Resident Evil Requiem is forcing him to confront the final truth. He is the only one who can identify the patterns of the cover-up, because he was there when the first reports were filed and the first bodies were burned. The city is his archive, and his mission in 2028 is to perform the final audit of its secrets. He is the bridge between the analog horror of the past and the digital conspiracy of the future. Raccoon City never let him go, because he is the only one who can truly testify to what was lost there, and his presence in the ruins is the definitive statement of the series' 30-year history. Part 10. Returning home changes Leon. Returning to the Raccoon City outskirts in 2028 is the event that finally breaks the tactical shell Leon Scott Kennedy has spent 30 years building. This is not the triumphant return of a hero, but the sobering realization of a man who is finally slowing down. In Resident Evil Requiem, the player sees a version of Leon who is visibly affected by the weight of his history. He no longer moves with the action hero energy of his prime. His movements are heavier, and his posture reflects the physical and psychological toll of his life. Returning home forces him to confront the fact that the idealistic rookie he once was is truly dead. He sees his younger self in the eyes of the young DSO recruits and in the resilience of Grace Ashcroft, and it fills him with a mixture of pity and regret. He realizes that he cannot save the world. The clinical reality of this change is the softening of his emotional detachment. Throughout the game, Leon's dialogue becomes less sparse and more confessional. He begins to share the hard truths of his history with Grace, not as a mentor giving advice, but as a tired man seeking a witness to his struggle. This is a psychological unraveling that is perfectly suited for a 30th anniversary title. We are seeing the legend being humanized through the lens of his greatest failure. He admits that he stayed in the DSO, not out of loyalty, but out of fear of what would happen if he left. He realizes that he has been a prisoner of the system since the day he walked out of the RPD in 1998. Returning to the site of his imprisonment allows him to finally see the bars of his cage, which is the first step toward his eventual redemption. This change is also reflected in his combat philosophy. In the earlier stages of Resident Evil Requiem, Leon fights with a brutal precision that is almost mechanical. As the story progresses and he nears the heart of the Wrenwood Hotel, his fighting style becomes more desperate and raw. He is no longer fighting for the mission. He is fighting for closure. He takes more risks and exhibits more physical vulnerability. The player feels this shift in the controls, the release of the professional soldier, and the return of the human being who is tired of the war. This is the requiem for the Kennedy legend. He is finally allowing himself to be scared again, because he realizes that fear is the only thing he has left that makes him human. Returning home allows Leon to redefine his relationship with the truth. For 30 years, he has been a tool of the cover-up, an agent who cleaned up the messes so the public wouldn't have to see them. In 2028, he makes the clinical decision to stop being the shield and start being the whistleblower. He decides that the secrets of Raccoon City and the Elpis project must be exposed, regardless of the cost to his career or his safety. This is the final change that returning home inflicts upon him. He transforms from a government asset into a martyr for the truth. He is standing in the fire of his youth one last time to ensure that the future belongs to people like Grace, who are not yet broken by the system. He is the veteran who finally chose honor over survival, and his homecoming is the catalyst for the final revolution of the Resident Evil world. Part 11. Leon and the Government. Trust is gone. By the year 2028, the relationship between Leon Scott Kennedy and the United States government, specifically the Division of Security Operations, has reached a point of terminal decay. For 30 years, Leon has been the government's primary biological cleanup agent, a man who was blackmailed into service after the Raccoon City incident to ensure his silence. He has spent his entire adult life operating with a moral exhaustion, serving an institution that he knows is fundamentally compromised. In Resident Evil Requiem, this trust is officially gone. Leon has realized that the shadow factions within the government were the primary architects of the sterilization strategy and the redacted RPD records. He no longer believes that the system can be fixed from the within. He only believes that the monsters it creates must be stopped. The clinical reality of this loss of trust is the paranoia that defines Leon's mission. He is constantly looking over his shoulder for the very DSO strike teams that are supposed to be his backup. He realizes that he is a loose end in the Elpis project, and that Victor Gideon is likely working with the same government officials who have been managing Leon's career since 1998. This turns the game into an institutional thriller. Leon is using his high-tier access to audit the system that he is supposed to be defending. He is a rogue operative who is still wearing the badge, a man who is using the government's own resources to dismantle its most sensitive secrets. This intellectual betrayal is his primary weapon against the shadows of the Arklay region. He knows how the redacted machine works because he has been part of it for 3 decades. This lack of trust is also what draws Leon to Grace Ashcroft. He sees her not just as an analyst, but as a clean witness, someone who hasn't yet been corrupted by the institutional rot of the global security apparatus. He protects her because she represents the truth that he was never allowed to tell. He is passing the torch of his morality to her, hoping that she can do what he couldn't: expose the system to the light of day. His relationship with the government has become transactional. He performs the mission only to get close enough to the evidence to steal it. He is a man who is exhausted by the lies, and he is ready to perform a surgical strike against the very heart of the conspiracy, even if it means his own professional and physical destruction. Leon's total lack of trust in the DSO is reflected in his choice of equipment. He avoids using high-tier government tracking tech, opting instead for analog tools and manual forensic kits. He knows that every piece of electronic gear can be used to track his location and monitor his progress. This adds a layer of tactical isolation to his segments. He is the forensic anchor for the theme of institutional failure. He is the man who has seen the Umbrella era mutate into the global security era, and he knows that the virus of hubris is present in both. His final mission in the Raccoon City ruins is an act of institutional suicide. He is burning his bridges to ensure that the Elpis ideology is exposed. He is the soldier who finally realized that the real enemy was the one giving him the orders, and his requiem is for the man who once believed that a badge could make a difference. Part 12. Leon as Grace's shield, not her savior. The dynamic between Leon Scott Kennedy and Grace Ashcroft in Resident Evil Requiem is a clinical study in professional mutualism. Leon functions as Grace's shield, providing the tactical cover fire and the physical protection required to navigate the high threat zones of the Raccoon City ruins. However, he is pointedly not her savior. He does not lead her or make her decisions. Instead, he treats her as a colleague whose technical and investigative skills are superior to his own. This dynamic is a quiet mentorship that allows Grace to grow into her own role as a survivor without being overshadowed by Leon's legend. He recognizes that while he can kill the monsters, only Grace can find the truth buried in the digital layers of the Wrenwood Hotel. He is the silver bullet that clears the path so the analyst can perform the final audit. The clinical reality of this shield dynamic is the management of space. In gameplay terms, Leon acts as the aggressor, drawing the attention of the biological organic weapons and neutralizing the immediate physical threats. This provides Grace with the quiet zone she needs to utilize her forensic kit and decrypt the data nodes. Leon does not save her from the puzzles. He ensures she has the safety to solve them. This creates a sense of operational respect. Leon knows that his time as the primary lead of the franchise is coming to an end, and he is invested in ensuring that Grace has the tools and the confidence to take over. He provides the armor, but she provides the brain. It is a partnership defined by the realization that in the world of the aftermath, a gun is not enough to win the war. This dynamic also prevents Grace from becoming a damsel in distress. Leon often defers to her judgment when it comes to the technical and investigative aspects of the mission. He asks her for data reports and relies on her environmental analysis to choose their route through the ruins. This equality of agency is what makes their relationship so modern and impactful for the 30th anniversary. It highlights the evolution of the hero in the Resident Evil universe. The hero is no longer just the person who can shoot the fastest. It is the team that can bridge the gap between combat and forensics. Leon's role as the shield is his final contribution to the series' history, a tactical sacrifice that ensures the new generation has a chance to fix the world he couldn't. Leon provides the cover fire with his VP-70, but Grace finds the truth that he cannot access. This functional symmetry is the hallmark of their partnership. He doesn't treat her as a novice, but as a technical expert whose skills are essential for the survival of both. This respect for the individual is the hallmark of Leon's character in 2028. He has seen enough people be treated as assets by the government. He refuses to treat Grace as anything other than a person. This mentorship is his requiem for the innocence he lost. By being the shield for Grace, he is protecting the very thing that the world tried to take from him 30 years ago. He is the legend who stands in the fire so that the truth can finally be told, proving that the greatest act of a hero is not the kill, but the protection of the mind that can end the war. Part 13. Why Leon Can't Fix This World. A central thematic pillar of Resident Evil Requiem is the clinical realization that experience and tactical lethality are no longer sufficient to stop the modern, decentralized threat of biological terror. Leon Scott Kennedy is a relic of the Umbrella era, a man who was trained to fight a localized enemy with a clear hierarchy and physical laboratories. In the year 2028, the threat has mutated into the Elpis ideology, a decentralized system of control that is integrated into the very institutions Leon serves. This highlights the fundamental limits of the legacy characters. While Leon can successfully kill the monsters, clear the rooms, and neutralize the immediate physical threats, he lacks the technical and forensic capacity to dismantle the ideological rot. He can save the day in a tactical sense, but he cannot save the future from a system that is designed to sterilize human agency. The clinical reality of this limitation is the sorrow of the veteran. Leon has spent 30 years perfecting his skills as a survivor, only to find that the war has changed into a format he does not fully understand. He is a hammer in a world that now requires a scalpel. This is why his partnership with Grace Ashcroft is so critical. Leon recognizes that his methods are becoming obsolete. He can provide the armor and the firepower with his VP-70, but the Elpis ideology exists in server rooms, digital archives, and high-tier political agreements that his bullets cannot reach. This creates a state of professional impotence for Leon. He is at the peak of his physical and tactical ability, yet he has never felt more powerless to effect permanent change. He is fighting a shadow war, where the enemies are no longer just biological, but institutional. Leon's inability to fix the world is a meta-commentary on the state of the Resident Evil franchise. Capcom is using Leon to show that the 30-year cycle of outbreak and containment has reached its natural conclusion. The veterans have held the line for 3 decades, but the world is still rotting from the same corporate cancer. This highlights the necessity of the new generation. Grace Ashcroft represents the new language of the conflict, which is forensics, whistleblowing, and information warfare. Leon's role is to stand in the fire one last time, to protect the person who actually has the tools to end the cycle. He is the Requiem for the hero who thinks they can win through combat alone. He is the witness who finally admits that the war cannot be won by soldiers, but by the people who have the courage to tell the truth. Leon's struggle in 2028 is about accepting limits. He has realized that his value to the world is as a shield, not a savior. This is a profoundly mature and cynical direction for his character. It removes the superhero status and replaces it with a clinical realism that is much more terrifying. He is a man who knows he is a relic, yet he refuses to stop fighting, because he knows that if he falls, the path to the truth will be closed forever. He is not fighting for a victory that he will see. He is fighting for a future that belongs to people like Grace. This tactical nihilism is the hallmark of Leon's character in Resident Evil Requiem, a reminder that in a world defined by biological failure, the only thing you can truly fix is the immediate safety of the person standing next to you. Part 14. Leon's role in exposing Elpis. In the world of Resident Evil Requiem, Leon Scott Kennedy is the forensic link between the past's lies and the present's conspiracy. While Grace Ashcroft provides the technical capacity to decrypt the data, Leon provides the contextual intelligence required to understand what that data actually means. He knows what redacted looks like, because he has been living in the shadows of the government cover-up for 30 years. He helps Grace identify patterns in the Elpis data that only someone who survived the original Raccoon City incident would recognize. He sees the signature of the original sterilization strategy in the modern ideology, proving that the architects of the 1998 disaster are the same ones driving the 2028 agenda. Leon's role is to provide the institutional memory that is essential for a high-tier forensic investigation. The reality of Leon's role in exposing Elpis is his ability to audit the conspiracy. He knows the names of the shadow factions, the locations of the old laboratories, and the biological logic of the people he is hunting. When Grace finds an encrypted file that mentions a specific protocol or a code name, Leon is the one who can explain the history of that term. He is the human database for the 30-year history of the biohazard world. This makes him a target for the primary antagonist, Victor Gideon, who views Leon as the most dangerous loose end in the entire system. Leon isn't just a soldier, he is a witness with 30 years of evidence stored in his mind. His presence at the Wrenwood Hotel turns the investigation from a digital search into a historical judgment. Leon's role in exposing the ideology is a form of professional redemption. For decades, he has been used by the government to clean up the messes and keep the public in the dark. By helping Grace expose Elpis, he is finally turning the gun on the people who have been holding his leash. He is using his DSO access to bypass security nodes and provide Grace with the administrative clearance needed to reach the core archives. He is performing a surgical betrayal of the system he served. This is the requiem for his loyalty. He has realized that the only way to honor the people he couldn't save in Raccoon City is to make sure the world finally sees the clinical truth of the sterilization strategy. He is the bridge that carries the weight of the past, so the new generation can build something transparent. Leon's involvement ensures that the Elpis ideology cannot simply be rebranded as another corporate accident. He provides the proof of intentionality and institutional complicity. He shows that the virus is not the problem, but the philosophy of control that drives the research. This is a profound shift for his character. He is no longer the cleaner. He is the whistleblower. He stands in the fire of his youth one last time to ensure that the shadows have nowhere left to hide. He is the veteran who finally chose honor over survival, and his role in exposing the conspiracy is the definitive statement of his career. He is the man who finally realized that the only way to stop the monsters is to stop the people who write the checks, and he is willing to sacrifice everything to make that happen. Part 15. The Names Circling. Leon, Sherry, Ada, and Unresolved Ties. By the year 2028, the personal history of Leon Scott Kennedy has become a heavy weight that threatens to compromise his clinical focus. The names of the people he has cared for, specifically Sherry Birkin and Ada Wong, are no longer just side plots. They are the primary reasons he continues to serve in the war. Sherry Birkin represents Leon's moral responsibility. He has spent 30 years ensuring her safety from the government factions that view her as a biological asset. Her safety is the primary leverage the DSO has used to keep Leon on a leash. In Resident Evil Requiem, Leon's pursuit of Victor Gideon is a desperate attempt to liquidate that leverage once and for all. He wants to ensure that Sherry is finally free from the shadow of her parents' legacy, even if it means his own professional destruction. Then there is the unresolved tie to Ada Wong. In 2028, Ada remains a shadow in Leon's life, a woman who represents the transitory nature of his career. Their relationship has been a series of clinical encounters, defined by mutual exploitation and unspoken trauma. In the ruins of Raccoon City, Leon finds evidence that Ada has been auditing the Elpis project from the shadows. This complicates his mission, as he is never quite sure if she is a tactical ally or a shadow competitor. The mention of her name in the Wrenwood Hotel archives is a psychological trigger for Leon, reminding him of the man he was when he first met her in 1998. These names are the emotional anchors that prevent Leon from becoming a total machine. They are the reasons he still feels fear, and they are the reasons he refuses to walk away from the war entirely. The clinical reality of these ties is the vulnerability they create. Victor Gideon and the shadow factions of the government know exactly which names to use to manipulate Leon. They use the threat of a redacted investigation into Sherry or a capture order for Ada to keep Leon in line. This creates a state of constant pressure that contributes to his extreme burnout. He is a man who is fighting a war for the people he loves, while the people he serves are the ones threatening them. This moral exhaustion is the hallmark of his character in Resident Evil Requiem. He is tired of the games, and he is tired of the names being used as currency. His mission in 2028 is an attempt to settle the accounts so that he can finally find peace one way or another. Furthermore, the unresolved ties serve as a requiem for Leon's personal life. He has no family, no home, and no future outside of the biohazard world. His life is defined by the names of the people he has tried to save. By bringing these names to the forefront in the 30th anniversary title, Capcom is highlighting the human cost of being a protagonist. Leon is a man who has traded a normal life for a life of protective violence. He is the lonely soldier who is standing in the ruins of his youth, realized that the only things he has left are the names of the survivors. These ties provide the emotional core for his segments, ensuring that the player is fighting for something more than just a mission objective. They are fighting for the people who made Leon Scott Kennedy who he is, and they are the reason he will stand in the fire one last time. Part 16, Final Verdict. Leon as the past, confronting the present. The final verdict on Leon Scott Kennedy in Resident Evil Requiem is that he successfully serves as the thematic witness for the 30th anniversary. He is not the future of the Resident Evil franchise, Grace Ashcroft is, but he is the bridge that carries the weight of the past 30 years, so that the new generation can build something transparent and new. Leon is the veteran who has survived the Umbrella era and the global security era, and his presence in the ruins of Raccoon City is the definitive statement on the cost of that survival. He is the man who has traded his innocence, his youth, and his personal life for the skills of a high-tier operative, and his final mission is a surgical cleanup of the secrets that have defined his career since 1998. Leon's role in 2028 is to provide the clinical closure for the era that started in the Arklay region. He is the one who finally performs the institutional audit on the government's betrayal, exposing the names of the men who blackmailed him and the architects of the sterilization strategy. He is the silver bullet that clears the path for Grace, proving that the veterans still have a vital role to play as the shield for the truth. He is the requiem for the hero who thought they could win through combat alone. A man who has finally accepted that the real victory is found in the declassification of the truth. His moral exhaustion and emotional detachment make him the most real he has ever been, providing a sober and mature look at what it means to be a survivor in a world defined by biological failure. The reality of his impact is the systemic shift he facilitates. By acting as the forensic link for Grace, he ensures that the next generation of protagonists are equipped with the truth that he was denied. He is the man who finally liquidated the leverage of the shadow factions, ensuring that survivors like Sherry Birkin are finally free from the system. His presence in Resident Evil Requiem is the ultimate mic drop for the character's history. He has come home to the graveyard of his youth to finish the work he started on his first day as a police officer. He is the legend who stood in the fire one last time so that the fog could finally be lifted from the world. Ultimately, Leon Scott Kennedy is the soul of the 30th anniversary. He represents the resilience, the trauma, and the enduring morality of the human spirit in the face of 30 years of biological war. He is the witness who saw the beginning and is finally ready to see the end. Resident Evil Requiem is his final statement, a clinical and moving deconstruction of what it means to be a Resident Evil. He has carried the torch for 3 decades. Now he is using it to burn the conspiracy to the ground. He is the past confronting the present, the man who has finally found the courage to tell the truth, proving that knowledge is the only weapon that can truly end the war.